President Trump sees a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to peace talks with Iran.
So this coming after the president reportedly had a heated conversation with Israel Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu.
Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv with the details for us. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. President Trump indicated that a broader deal with Iran could be closed as early as this week, telling a reporter yesterday, quote, "I think you're talking about over the next week. I still have to get a few more points." As the president works towards a deal with Iran, he was able to de-escalate the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, getting on the phone with both sides. The president said on Truth Social, "I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today asking him not to go into a major raid of Beirut, Lebanon. He turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi. I also had a conversation with representatives of the leaders of Hezbollah, and they agreed to stop shooting at Israel and its soldiers. Likewise, Israel agreed to stop shooting at them. Let's see how long that lasts. Hopefully it will be for eternity." Axios reports the call between Trump and Netanyahu was tense, saying in a piece posted yesterday, quote, summarizing Trump's remarks to Netanyahu, the U.S. official said, "You're effing crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your A. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this." A second source briefed on the call said Trump was pissed and at one point yelled at Netanyahu, "What the F are you doing?" At this moment, Israeli troops remain in southern Lebanon, and overnight there were a few sirens in northern Israel from Hezbollah rocket and drone attacks, as well as a small number of Israeli strikes in Lebanon. The Iranians are watching closely the unfolding exchange of fire and words, with Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson saying this.
An obvious reason for the escalation and the atrocities by the Zionist regime over recent days in Lebanon is to destroy even the slightest possibility for the ongoing diplomatic process to lead to improvements in the situation. And again, the U.S. is responsible for this. We can't consider the U.S. and the Zionist regime as two separate agents.
The Iranians have a lot to say. The reality is their economy is suffering due to the ongoing U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports. Guys?
It's kind of ironic. How do you view it, Trey? It looks like Hezbollah, when their war started, they're the ones who started launching rockets in Israel. And the only reason Israel's in Lebanon is so they could get into the northern part of their country, because that's where Hezbollah was lobbing rockets into their country. If there were no rockets coming from Lebanon, Israel would be perfectly happy to let Lebanon live in peace. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, Hezbollah has been launching rockets and drones into Israel since October 8th of 2023, when they followed Hamas's attack into this country. The reality is that both Israel and Lebanon want to get rid of Hezbollah, but there is a pathway to do so, and the Trump administration has been working on a diplomatic solution. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, behind the scenes, has been trying to get both Israel and Lebanon at the table in Washington multiple times to come up with a framework of a normalization between the two countries that has the same goal: to disarm this Iranian proxy that exists in southern Lebanon and in the southern part of the Lebanese capital of Beirut. President Trump wants a broader framework agreed to across the region that would de-escalate the rising tension that continues to take place. And the reality is the Israelis and the Americans have a common goal, but the way to get there is a bit different. And so the days ahead will be quite tense to see what happens in Lebanon. We understand that Hezbollah wants to continue to de-escalate because they understand they're getting boxed out of these possible peace talks and the possibility of a broader deal. But President Trump has been very clear. He'd like to see Lebanon join the Abraham Accords. He sees the region as having an opportunity for peace and prosperity ahead. And given the fact that he hit the Iranian regime so hard during Operation Epic Fury, there's an understanding that the groundwork may have been laid to do just that.
Yeah, Trey, do you think, and look, the fight happened between Benjamin Netanyahu and the president, but they've had these, back and forths for a while, but it doesn't mean that their relationship is broken. This happened one time during the negotiations when it came to getting the hostages back. It happened right before the Operation of Midnight Hammer. So they have these back and forth, but that doesn't mean that their relationship is broken by any stretch of the, right?
Yeah, and look, President Trump is a deal maker here, and when you're making a deal, sometimes you have to give concessions and make tough decisions. And ultimately, what the president is trying to do, primarily, is reach a deal with the Iranian regime to ensure that those in Tehran never obtain a nuclear weapon that could threaten U.S. allies like Israel or U.S. forces across the region. What's interesting as it relates to Lebanon and the back and forth that we've heard here, 2 years ago, had had a situation where people were reporting that the Lebanese leadership wanted to create normalized ties with Israel and ultimately disarm Hezbollah, people in the region would have laughed. What President Trump has been able to do here is put pressure on the Lebanese government to tell them no more. You can no longer support this Shia militia group in the southern part of Beirut, and you cannot allow them to operate freely in the southern part of your country. And either you're going to send your forces in to ensure they're not launching rockets at Israel, or ultimately the Israelis will conduct a ground operation like we are seeing right now into southern Lebanon and do it themselves. And so what the president is doing here is trying to get a peace deal on the table between the Israeli government and the Lebanese government that ultimately is going to box out Hezbollah. And to do so, there are going to be difficult conversations, and this is not totally unexpected. But the reality is, whether it is on the ground in Lebanon, in Gaza, or even with the Iranian regime, President Trump wants peace here. And ultimately, that is going to require a lot of difficult decisions in this region. Guys?
All right. Thank you, Trey. This is why our elections are so important. We have a president who is strong and will prevent sleeper cells in our country, who will close our border. If you have an open border, we could end up like Lebanon one day, where we have terrorist occupied groups here in our country. So if they were able to root out Hezbollah, that would be amazing if Lebanon were able to do that. The reason it's important for us, you might say this is happening in Lebanon, this is happening in Israel. Why is this important to America? It's important because President Trump got on that phone call with the Hezbollah leaders and with Netanyahu to make sure that a deal can be done. Iran is saying if Hezbollah and if Iran is saying if Israel doesn't stop attacking Hezbollah, then we won't do a deal with America. So it all goes hand in hand, and we have to be allies with Benjamin Netanyahu. We care about Israel, but it seems so far for us, but it does matter to America, and we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon.
Well, the other thing is, it's all Hezbollah's fault. I mean, they're a terrorist organization, like a cancer growing in Lebanon, who lives to destroy Israel. And they are the gold standard of terror organizations. Right. So they're the ones who started it. And when they get hit back, their parent company, Iran, gets upset by it. It looks like we have blown up, you know, those small little boats, the Mosquito Navy? Mm-hmm. Looks like we knocked out at least 40 of them, underreported. The other thing is we hit Qasem Island, where recent strikes came from. So there's a low-level war going on right now. They sent rockets over to Kuwait, which we knocked out of the sky yesterday. They're not aimed at Kuwait. They're aimed at us.
Doesn't seem much like a ceasefire.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.